Okay, good morning. We are going to look at middle school, high school scheduling. This is part one of two different parts. So today we'll look at our courses, course sections. We'll look at course requests using the public module. And then the second part is using the batch scheduler. So today's kind of prepping, and this is what you guys are, getting ready for with your students, is getting them their requests in, and then part two will actually be starting the scheduling process. Okay, so, and that is in 2 weeks on the 25th. Several documents that we're going to use are in the Learning Center. So under student information, under the procedural checklists, there's several of them. So the first one that we are going to look at is the courses, course sections, and course group setup. We are also going to look at the course requests as well as the public course requests. So those should be the three procedural checklists that we'll go through today. If you are already signed up for the next session, we will look at the batch scheduler then. We're not going to look at that today. From the student information home screen down at the bottom, there are some helpful documents. There is a checklist. These are just it's kind of all of the procedural checklists kind of put into one. Just some of the reports, kind of the process of getting the requests in and so forth. So, it's just kind of a guide. So it was handmade. And like I said, it's kind of a combination of all of those procedural checklists. The course request import, this is a blank import file. This is also found in your Learning Center, but we posted it here as well. In the Learning Center, it's kind of hidden. It's a template, which is under, it's in a weird spot. It's under quick references. So under quick references, you have your templates. And then there is one that is called course request import template. Okay, so we will look at that towards the end. But this and what is posted here for the course request import, it's the same thing. Okay. And then your other ones, there's an example for the public. How many of you are using the public so the students can register online with their course selections? Is anybody doing that or interested in doing that? Maybe, possibly, okay. I'm getting a lot of no's, but I'm going to go over it anyways. So, if you're like, well, I'm not sure about it, you might want to listen because it might be something that could be of help to you. Okay, so the first one we are going to go through is our courses, course section, and course group procedural checklist. We are going to start looking at our courses. And I know several of you attended the course cleanup. So that was something new this year to kind of clean up some of our courses and course sections so they didn't roll over during the SYI or the school year initialization process. So now is the time where we can actually dive in deep in the 26-27 school year, look at those courses, see which ones we do want or do not want, even course sections that might need to be inactivated because they're not going to be taught this year. So we're going to look at all of those details. So I'm going to make sure I'm at the building level, so whatever building you are working at, and then we are working in the 26-27 school year. Okay, make sure you're in the 26-27. You don't want to be trying to make changes to the current school year. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at, page 3, is looking at courses. So a few things, SYI has to be completed. Okay, so it does have to be completed in order for you to have courses and course sections and students in the future school year. So We go through the process of SYI and then promotion and bulk enroll. Every school has completed that process. So you should have your courses, your course sections, etc. So task one is just looking at these courses and verifying some of these courses that you have in your future school year. So the first thing we're going to do is in our go-to box, we are going to look at our CRSE report. Okay, stands for your course curriculum. So when you're going through this, now depending, because we have some smaller schools in here and we have some bigger schools in here, you might, maybe you're a guidance counselor and you're only in charge of 9th and 10th graders. So if that's the case, you might want to pull over just 9th and 10th grade courses. These would be any that it's grade level specific. So you've marked that they're available for 9th and 10th grade. If you leave everything over to the left, it's just going to look at all of the courses. Okay. So your department, subject area, and course area of study, we are going to look at those here in a second. However, those are district made or actually building made. So it is not something that is consistent through all of our districts. It is something that you would use if you've created those for your building and or for your district. The EMIS subject area, and again, I'm just leaving all these things to the left because it's going to look at all of them. The EMIS subject area, of course, that is classified by your EMIS subject codes. Okay. Your difficulty level, this was a big thing a little bit ago when we were working with the CTAG, making sure that those courses are weighted properly and so forth. So if you want to look at a difficulty level specifically, you can pull that over to see what courses are associated with that difficulty level. Triway is our only district that has add-on level points. And I don't think Triway's with us online. So, but those would be the only ones that would use add-on. This is the important area of this report. Many of our trainings always start with the CRSE report because you can break it down in the fields that you want to display. So this is one of the only reports that you can display up to 10 different fields of your choice. So if you look over here, some things that you want to look at. One, an important one is your course type, because this is going to tell you if it's a class, if it's a study hall, if it's a lunch, if it's a CCP, et cetera, et cetera. So that could be very helpful. If you are a district that uses the level of difficulty or difficulty point scale, that is weighting. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about by level of difficulty, that is a weighted scale. So maybe you use a 5-point scale versus a 4. Is in the update history. This is so those courses go to the student's course history page. Is it high school credit? Middle school, this is probably really important for you guys because you might have some courses that are high school credit. Your algebras, maybe VOAG, things like that. So you want to make sure that those are marked correctly. When we are looking at our courses, the high school credit is on by default. So right now we don't have any elementary attending. Well, Kendall, you're half and half, but and Renee, you're half and half too. But so we want to definitely make sure our elementary classes aren't high school credit, and then the appropriate middle school are. Okay. EMIS subject code, this is what gets reported to make sure that the teacher teaching it and the code is correct and they work together. If a course is dual credit, so your CCP classes, if they're getting high school credit and college credit, and then, especially for our high school, include in their GPA, their total credits. This one, roll to next year. So some of you went to the cleanup. We talked about the rolling to next year. If you weren't going to use the course, say in the past you taught French, but now you're no longer teaching French, You don't want that to keep rolling over year to year. You want to make sure it doesn't. So that'll say yes or no if it's going to roll over. And then our report to EMIS. Why is this important? Well, because classes like our study halls, our lunches, our case management classes, a lot of districts have a course called Athletes for Coaches. We don't want to report those to EMIS. Those are non-academic classes. Okay. And then the course name. I'm sorting by the course name. If you are a person that works with the course code, you can sort by your course codes. My codes are just numerical. I would rather see the course name. Okay. And I already ran this. Oh, and I went to the wrong one. So if I look at my CRSE report, oh, I already ran it and it's still taking a while to populate it. Okay, so it's going to have my course code. It is sorted by the course name because I said I wanted that alphabetical. So it is sorting this by the course name. What grade levels are associated with it? Okay. And then the course type code, whether it's a class, case management, if it's a lunch period. So for example, this one's a blank one. This one's set as a CCP. I should have lunches in here, are my L's, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So all those things in update history, high school credit, my EMIS subject code, making sure that that's correct. Is it dual credit, GPA, et cetera, et cetera. So again, you can pick up to 10 fields to populate in this report. Okay. So when you're going through this, and I'm not going to say we're going to sit here and spend a half hour going through all our classes. When you're going through this, say, for example, you see music theory, you're like, we haven't taught that in years. Well, we definitely want to make that inactive. Okay. So we don't want that available so it accidentally gets scheduled and it doesn't need to roll up to the next year if we're not going to teach it. The other one that is a more in-depth, a more detailed report is in the Analytic Hub. So I'm going to go to my Analytic Hub. That's this bottom one. So in the Analytic Hub underneath scheduling, there is one called Course Details. And like I said, it's more detailed, hence the name. Okay, so in this one, it's basically all of the same things that we just looked at, but it includes all of those fields. You can't limit it to just the 10. It brings over all of those fields. So this report does get pretty wide. But the nice thing is, so I'm going to pick my school year. So I'm going to do my 26-27 school year. And then my building. Scheduling. It's under scheduling. And I starred mine. Because I use it quite a bit for things. But you can have up to 5 different Analytic Hub reports starred, and then they'll populate at the top for you. Under scheduling, what is it? Course detail. It's the first one on the right under scheduling. Why is my building not showing up? There it goes. Okay. My screen might look a little bit different than you because I'm in the test district and our report builder's changed. Okay. So I'm looking at the future school year 26-27 for my test high school, and I'm going to run this report. Unfortunately, I can't run it ahead of time because it kind of runs on the fly. But you'll see all those same things that we just saw in the CRSE report, the course code, the course name. This one does show the description. If you are putting anything in the description, it shows both the abbreviation and the short name, how many hours of instruction, all of those different things. So scheduling priorities, is it high school credit? Does it roll to next year? If you look, it just goes on and on and on. So it has every single thing that we're going to see on our course screen is going to be listed here. So what is suggested is that this is printed. If you print them out, kind of go through, and highlight anything that's no longer taught. Maybe highlight anything that is, not labeled as a class. Double check your CCP classes. Make sure that are they labeled as a class or are they labeled as CCP? Okay. Back in the day, a lot of times our CCP classes were just labeled as class. Well, then now we got somebody new and you're labeling them as CCP. Well, half of them are class and half of them are CCP. So you might want more consistency with those. Okay. We'll look at a few other reports as we're going through and looking at our course sections. Okay. So those are two reports for you to kind of narrow down, making sure that all the courses are there that you want. So now let's look at the creation of a course. So in my go-to box, I'm just going to type in courses. And I'm going to go to the one that says courses. If you are adding a new course, there is a green button here that says add new course. Okay, I'm going to look at an existing one. If you want to see all of your courses listed, you can just click on the search box and that's going to bring up every single course. If you know the name of your course, so for example, if I wanted to look at my Spanish class, if I start typing in Spanish, it's going to populate all of my courses that have that in that name. The other thing I can do is use this little ellipse box right here. If I click on that, I can break it down different ways. So I can look at my course groups because this list down here will not show course groups. Okay. If I want to see my course groups, I can populate a list of course groups, hit search, and it's going to show all my course groups. Districts like Black River that have all semester classes, they might have a bunch of course groups, where other districts that have other all year classes, you might not have any. So that's one thing that you can do from there. The other is you can kind of break it down. You can see by a specific teacher who's teaching has a course section. The other one that I like is the period of the day. So if you want to see what courses are taught second period only, I can click on period of the day, hit search, and it's going to show me any class that's taught second period. Well, let's do fourth. Oh, I'd have to be in the previous school year. I don't have those scheduled yet. Okay. So just those are different things that you can do with the ellipse box. I am going to go in and look at my English 10 class by clicking on the pencil. Now, before I go in there, I want to make a note of something. So I'm in the 26-27 school year. You will notice that I have my trash can to, they say delete, it makes it inactive. Okay, so it doesn't really delete it, it just makes it inactive. I have my edit pencil, and then I have the little group of people that I can see any course requests. Notice if I flip back to my 25-26 school year and search, notice I also have a calendar. This will only populate if there are students assigned to that course. So once you start assigning courses to your students, this column will populate. But right now in the 26-27 school year, since nothing has been scheduled to any of our students, that calendar column is not there. Okay, but it will populate. Okay. So again, I'm going to go into my English 10. I'm going to click on the pencil. And we're going to go through all of these tabs. Okay. So the first one is your course code. Okay. This is kind of what you see. This is, how you can organize things. Everybody does it a little bit different. Some use numbers to classify their courses. Maybe all of the English class are under 100. Maybe math is from 100 to 200. Sciences are from 2 to 300, et cetera, et cetera. So it all depends. Elementary does it a little bit different. A lot of times they have little words in there like SPEL for spelling and a grade level, whatever. So again, this is kind of up to you, but the course code is important because a lot of places, this is the only thing that you see. Even in some of the request screens, you'll be using the course code, not the name. Okay. Our course code can be up to 15 characters. It is suggested that it is around 8 characters. Okay, so they say 10 or less, 8 is recommended because this course code also does show up in gradebook. Okay, so we'll look at gradebook here in a little bit too, so you can see how these courses will show. So even though it'll allow up to 15, try to keep those codes short and sweet. The name, this is the important one. This is what shows up for the teachers in gradebook. Okay, so you want it to be something meaningful for those teachers. You don't want to put E10 because they might not know what that is. So again, this is what shows up in their list of classes in their grade books. Abbreviation and short name, these are visible on some reports. Okay, and a lot of times they're very similar. Hours of instruction. So it depends if this is a full year class or a semester class. Okay, so to figure out your hours of instruction, it's usually between 120 to 150 for a full year class. Okay, so how to figure this out is your number of minutes for the class. So if it's a 45-minute class taught 5 days a week, and then divide that by 60. Okay, so some people have like 42-minute classes or 48-minute classes. So then your hours of instruction aren't nice and round. I just used a round number for mine. Okay, so it's the number of minutes in class times the number of days divided by 60. If this is a course that should not be reported to EMIS, such as study hall, lunch, and a coach's class, the hours of instruction should be 0. If it is an academic class, it cannot be lower than 18 hours. Okay, so I've only really seen the lowest ones for like elementary. If they're going to a special like once a week or something like that, you sometimes see lower hours of instruction.
So you said number of minutes in class
times the number of days, which everybody goes 5 days a week, and then divided by 60. So I don't know how long your periods are.
They just told me when I started to put 75. All of ours say 75. So I don't know if that's right.
If they're all your classes, probably not. Or are you semester? Are you guys semester?
Some are semester.
Semester classes, that might be okay, but all your classes, the hours of instruction should be longer.
So
it should not be it should not be below 120. They're usually between 120 and 150.
Our semester classes, because we have like English 10A, English 10B.
Okay. That's how Black River is set up too. Okay, so 75 would be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's 150 total hours for A, E, and B together.
So 100 for all of you.
Yes, okay. Correct. Okay. Scheduling priority. Since this is a scheduling class, this is where our priority comes into play. Normally, our important classes, our core classes, are English, science, social studies, math. Those have a higher scheduling priority. So 8s and 9s. 9 is your highest. Okay. It will default to 5 if you're creating a new class. So that's kind of your midway point. If they're electives, things like that, maybe even some of your foreign languages, those might have a lower priority. Because it doesn't matter if they're getting in an art class, or is it more important that they're getting into an English class? I know some kids would think differently, but they're required to have the English for graduation. Okay. So this is where this can be set up. This is especially important if you're using the batch scheduler, because it will look at the scheduling priority when it tries to do the batch scheduling. Okay, and that's, again, that's part 2. Now let's look at some of these check boxes. Okay, so display on the public module. I know a lot of you said you're not using the public module where the students can register themselves, or not register, request, I should say, because it's nothing's final. They're just saying, hey, I want to take, these core classes and these electives, and then you can approve it or not approve it. So that's what the public module is. And typically things like lunches, study halls, of course, are like coaches classes, things like that. We don't display those on the public module, even our study halls, because we don't want kids requesting 5 study halls. We'll add the study halls in after all their requests have been fulfilled. Is it high school credit? Again, by default, this is checked. So my middle school, make sure that courses such as like a 7th grade English course, that should not be for English credit, or English credit, high school credit. So we want to make sure that that is not checked. However, if they're taking Algebra 1 and it is for high school credit, then you want to make sure that it is checked. Okay. Roll course to next year. Okay. So again, for example, you're not teaching French any longer. It was taught in 25, 26, but you're not going to be teaching it in 26, 27. You can uncheck that and it won't roll over the next time during SYI. Okay. College prep is no longer used. Okay, so it doesn't matter if it's checked or not, it doesn't do anything. Okay, and then display on parent access. Okay, so this can be important and should be looked at, especially for your extra things such as case management classes or caseload classes, our coaches classes, things like that. It depends on how the course type is set up. Will depend if it displays on parent access, but if it is set as a class, it will go to parent access for parents to see on their schedule. Okay, and we'll talk about the different class types when we get to the miscellaneous tab. If you turn this off, display on parent access, this, when you're on the parent access screen, it is just not visible on the student's schedule screen, but it is visible in other places unless it's disabled in gradebook itself. So it's kind of a 2-step process. Okay. Would you not want English 10 in parent access? You would, so you would want that checked. Okay. Is active, this means it's an active course. Okay, so it could be scheduled, it could be used in the batch scheduler, could be used on the public module, etc. This course will show in the student's course history. So that's that check mark. The core course, this is no longer used. We now have on the EMIS tab, the EMIS subject code on there. So that is the important one. When we get to that, I will point that out. Is it dual credit? So are they receiving high school credit and college credit for this course? And then some of our core classes will go towards those NCAA core classes. Okay. If you are not offering a class in 26, 27, you can uncheck roll to the next year and uncheck is active, and it will no longer continue in the SYI process. Okay. I'm going to go to my marks tab. The course weight always defaults to 10. We've just always left it there. It does work with the batch scheduler if it's weighted differently. Everything's just weighted the same, so it then looks at the scheduling priority. Level of difficulty, if this is a course, if it's a CCP course, a CTAG course, any of your honors courses that get an adjusted grading scale, this is where you would pick the appropriate grading scale. That is your level of difficulty. Again, Triway is the only one that uses add-on points, which is similar to our level of difficulty, but this is where you would pick it. Our credit units, okay, so if you are using the public module, it does look at the credit units because it does allow you to pick a minimum amount of credits that the student's allowed to request. But this is saying that this English 10, it's a full year class and they can get 1 credit. If it's a semester class, typically semester classes, you're earning half credit at the semester break. Okay. If it is a non-reported to EMIS class, such as our study halls, our lunches, our caseload classes, then the credit units would be at 0. If this is a CCP class, how many credits is it worth? If it's like CCP English, it's going to be worth 3 credits, so 3 college credits. And since we marked it as dual credit, then they would get 1 high school credit. Yes, Vicky, or Diane, sorry.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
So on the credit units, how do you have a recommendation on how to figure that? Like sometimes that comes to me to figure that and not my administration. Like if it's a half a semester, is it worth so much credit or is it based on your hours?
Well, I think it's typically based on like a full year, unless it is the only ones that I've seen that are higher than a 1.0 are labs at a vocational school
Yeah, you know what? That's what I am.
because they're
Yeah.
in class longer than a typical period.
Okay. Yeah, I guess
So
that's what
other
I
than that,
am.
it's typically, yeah, typically it's a quarter credit for each quarter.
Okay.
So, if it's a 9-week class, it's going to be worth 0.25.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
then the JVS courses, without looking, but off the top of my head, I want to say they're 1.825, 875, 1.875, because they're in that class much longer than a traditional, like an English class.
Okay. And that's 1.875 per quarter or per half?
For the JVS classes, I would have to double check on that one. I would have
Is,
to pull up a kid and look.
is it in like the
If
EMIS
you can, I
manual or
can do
guide
that at the
somewhere?
end and look.
Okay.
You know what? I'll look in the there's a Mark's maintenance guide in the
Oh,
Learning Center. It's like
okay.
150 pages. It's super
Okay.
long. Um, I would start there. I'll see if it's in there. Yeah. So
Okay. I
I
can
don't
check that
know if
out.
there's really a rule or um yeah, but I can look more into that for you.
Okay. Thank you.
And then what did you say, Kate? Phys ed is only a half or okay. So then the other thing was phys ed is only a quarter credit, even if it's a semester class. And then, yeah, because what are they required to have? 2 semesters of it okay. Yeah, I skipped mark bump and rank weight. We don't really use those, but our college credit hours, if it is a CCP class, you do need the CCP IRN. So I don't know about you, but I don't know all my college IRNs off the top of my head. So you have the little magnifying glass where you can search and find the IRN for the college. Once you put the IRN in this box, it will automatically populate the college location. So if you were trying to put in the IRN for Ashland University and something else pops up here, like Muskingum State, you're like, oops, I transposed numbers or something like that. So it will always confirm here that your IRN is correct. Okay. Over to our check boxes. And again, these are, based on what you want. Is it in the honor roll? Yes or no. So if you're running, honor rolls for your students every quarter, whatever, are we including it in that? Is it included in the total amount of credits? Okay, so, a study hall is not going to be included in the total amount of credits. One, it shouldn't have any credit units, and then we don't want it to include it. Is it included in the GPA? So some things might not be included in your GPA. Is it an honors course? So some of you have honors classes. You can mark it as an honors course. Your permanent record, there is a report, your R700. You can also print your permanent record labels where it's printing that final grade in a sticker format. Sometimes they put them on folders and things for their permanent record. And then should this course print on the report card? Okay, so things like our study halls and things like that, you don't really need. Do you need to print study hall on the report card? They're not getting a grade for it, so it doesn't really need to be there. Okay. Next is our miscellaneous tab. So when we're looking at these, there are 3 areas over here: our department, area of study, and subject area. These are created by the building. Okay, these are not EMIS reportable or anything. Notice they don't have stars. Okay, so again, this is just something if you wanted to categorize them, you could. Okay, so if I go into my you can stay where you're at, but if I go back to my course maintenance, I can go into my area of study, and these are just ones that I've created here. I can look at my departments, and these are the departments that I have created. And then the other one is my course subject area. And again, these are just ones that have been created. They're not attached to any EMIS reports. They're not attached to any EMIS codes. They're made up here. Okay. So I just wanted to point those out because some people do like to organize things in such a way that would be helpful. Oh, my little search box is hidden. Okay. So the important thing on our miscellaneous is 2 things. This is course type. Okay. So is it a class? Is it a CCP? What is this class? Okay. So this is very important because this determines certain things, such as if it is classified as lunch. Okay. So if it is a lunch that is used for reporting attendance for attendance purposes, because a lunch course, you are not reporting the student absent during that time. Study halls, that's not a class. Okay, it's a non-reported to EMIS time of the day. So classes and college credit plus, okay, those are your main 2 that you would use, and then some of you might use a satellite course. Something such as spare. So if you use spare, this can be used for different things for like interventions. If they're working in the office or they're being like an office aide, something like that. If you do use the word or the course type spare, it will show on the student schedule. Okay, so if it's an intervention, if it's a block of time during your day, like arrows time or whatever it might be, it does show on the student schedule so they know that that's there, but it's not going to show on the mark screen. So So you can't put in any marks for it, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, but you will see that. The one that will not show on the student schedule is if you call it case management. So if we are doing something like an athletes for coaches, you would want to classify it as case management because it will show in the teacher's schedule, but it will not show on the student schedule. Okay, so I'm going to go into gradebook here for a second because we're far enough along so you can see some of these things. So you guys can stay in student information. I'm going to switch over to gradebook. Maybe. Okay, we're going to look at our teacher here. So if we look at Albert's classes, he has an athletes for coaches class, and then he's got his phys ed classes. Okay, so if I look at my coach's class, okay, and I see Terry here. So if we look at his schedule on parent access, okay, so notice the planner doesn't say case management. His schedule doesn't say case management, and his grade screen should not say case management because we classified it that way. A lot of people classify those athletes for coaches as a class, and they really shouldn't be because we don't want them to populate here. It's for those coaches to check grades and things like that. So it's for the coach, or we use them for special ed sometimes, or data map or whatever, so that they have a caseload class. We don't want that to show in the student schedule. Okay. The other thing while we are here in gradebook, so remember I said what you put as the name, this is what the teacher sees in their gradebook. So however you type it out is what they see. If I go to my edit list, it will show the course code, which they normally don't look at, but it is there. And then this is showing what section it is. So that is how the teachers see it. So depending on how you're setting it up is how the teachers are going to see it in their grade book. Okay. Now, one thing I want to mention, and we'll talk about this more when we're in our course sections, but if, so say, for example, Albert's teaching 3 sections of phys ed, well, next year, our numbers are down some. So he's going to teach 2 sections of phys ed and 2 sections of health. He's not going to teach this section. So there's no students in it. Even if there's no students assigned to a course and it is still active, it will flow over into that teacher's grade book. So it's important if the course section is no longer going to be used to make it inactive. And I will repeat that when we go to the course sections. Okay. So that's kind of how the teachers see that. So let me go back into my English 10 class. Okay. Down here, I'm not going to talk a lot about this. The in graduation eligibility, that is a different module in student information. I am going to do a new training on that on March 4th. So it's just you can do different things with eligibility. So like, if your school students are eligible for sports at 1.75 and then another school has their eligibilities at 2.0, it's where you can set some of those different things. So if this course is included in that, it should be checked. Down here at the grade level selected, this is for 2 things. One, at the elementary levels, it will help with standards-based report card. It picks the grade levels that are for each of those classes, and typically they're for single grade levels. where at the high school level, you might have classes that are available for multiple grade levels. Okay, so like an art class might be available for 9th through 12th graders, band, 9th through 12th graders. However, English 10 might only be available to 10th graders. Okay, if you have an 11th grader that did not pass, you can still manually request or assign that 10th grade course to an 11th grader. What this does is it narrows down what the students can see on the public module if you are using the public module. Okay. And, and this is a required field, or it says it's a required field, but I've seen this blank a lot of times and things don't populate correctly when it's blank. Okay, so this is one place that I always check when they're saying, oh, the course isn't showing up correctly. And then you come here and you're like, how did it get blank when it's got the red asterisk and it's supposed to be required? Okay. Next is our EMIS. And a lot of times you're not doing all of this stuff on the EMIS. Your EMIS coordinator is double checking everything here. So we're going to go through this quickly. Okay. Typically, your EMIS location IRN and description is blank. If you do have your school in there, that's okay. If you're creating a new course and it's being taught at your school, you do not have to complete these two sections. Okay. It's only if it is different from your current building. Okay. Staff provider IRN. This again is only if this is somebody that is not employed by your district. So like an ESC person, if they're teaching a class for you. Course level. This is so a lot of times this is our art classes, our foreign language classes, things like that. They might have art 1, art 2, art 3, etc. Okay. Typically not used for our algebras and things like that, where we have algebra 1, algebra 2. This is the important one. Always want to confirm with your EMIS person, but they will also double check because they have to report this, that this EMIS code is correct and that the person teaching it can teach this subject code. Okay. And then what subject area for credit? It's an English credit. What language is being used? Typically it's English. Core subject area, it's our English unit. Okay, so if you do have the is high school credit checked on the general tab, this has to be completed. Okay. Then if this course does have an assessment area, you would mark it here. So here are our end of course assessments. So obviously if it's English 9, okay, we no longer have the English 1 end of course. So you could leave that blank. If it's an algebra, you're going to mark it for algebra, etc. This helps with the pre-ID labels. This is how they populate. So our curriculum is typically OT. Okay. Some of you might have, well, most of you have college credit classes, which are your PS, and then some of you have your career tech classes. Usually face-to-face. Some of you still might have a few online courses floating in there here and there, but typically we're face-to-face. Our general population, okay? If you are picking this as special ed, it has to be greater than 50%. So if you have 10 kids in the class, 5 of them are special ed, 5 of them are general ed, you cannot mark it as special ed because it's not greater than 50. That's 6 kid, or take an arm off of one kid and you can have it special ed, but it's got to be over 50%. Okay, this report to EMIS, important. Our core classes, of course, our report to EMIS, our non-academic classes, study halls, caseload classes, do not report those to EMIS. Those are non-academic times. Lunch is not reported. Yes.
You have the subject theory for credit.
Mm-hmm.
Click on that. Okay, why does it say for elective, not counting as elective for state graduation? Cause I always choose that, but I'm like, it does count for state, right? So I'm not sure if that's, I don't know.
I know,
I'm clicking the wrong thing. but-
well, no, I agree with you. I feel like it's worded badly. I
Okay.
think it's not counting towards, so like if it's a speech class, but they're taking it as an elective, it's not counting towards their state requirements of like their English
Like,
courses. Yes. So it's just, it's going towards their electives, but it's not going to, that's how I think it's supposed to be. Yes, correct. It's, yes, it's worded very bad. Yes. Well,
come through. It will pull like who their last year English teacher was. And if the elective English course was chosen as END as English credit, it'll put that person instead of like the full year English course being the last year's English teacher, it'd be, the person they took creative writing second semester. So it is good to have those two.
okay.
That way.
And if you couldn't hear the comment on Zoom, they were saying sometimes in data map, because data map will pull the previous, so for example, for English, it'll pull the previous English teacher to show who the English teacher was. But if it's the elective, so say they're taking creative writing, you don't want it to show that creative writing teacher. You actually want it to show the English teacher. Okay, and then the last is pre and co-requisites. Okay. So these are just set up. So for example, for my English 10, I have a prerequisite. My prerequisite is English 9. So then as we build, so my English 12 would need 9, 10, 11, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes your co-requisites, and I don't know how many of you have this, would be such as if you have a chemistry and a chemistry lab. Okay, so they have to take those together. So that would be co-requisites. Okay, so how do you add these? I'm just going to go into the one that I have. You can pick the course number if you have the course code here. If you don't know the exact course code, you can click and you can search in your course code here, but I can see here it's my English 9 course. Okay. And then it populates, oops. Oh. Okay. So then it will populate in there. Okay. So depending on how you have your setup. So for example, I know a couple people in here stated they have semester classes, so they have to take A before they take B. So you might have that set up so that, before you can take English 10B, you have to take English 9A, English 9B, English 10A. Okay. Okay. Then you would save any changes, etc. Yes. No, you're fine. Yep.
There a way, so for level of difficulty, we have all these random, obviously they're from past years, who knows, like one says VCP help read it, like, is there a way, like, to edit those and get rid of them?
Yes. And I was going to talk to you because I did get an answer for you about the JVS CCP classes. Did I answer you?
No, I saw that some look weighted and others don't.
Y- Okay. Yes, because if it's the same, yeah, we just needed to change the name. Yeah.
Two CTAC.
No, she used AP is what she used from the JVS. In yours is called AP CCP. So we just need to remove the CCP off the name of it. And then it should automatically recalculate them. Yes, that's their CTAG classes. Yeah. Okay. But yes, we can, it is called, if you just in the go-to, if you type in difficulty, it is your difficulty course maintenance screen, not the point. The points is where you put in the point scale. It's the other one. It's the maintenance screen. Okay, I'm going to go back one level to my course maintenance. And I'm going to go to my course sections. Because we don't have a schedule finalized, it is going to request the working schedule. So I'm going to pick my default schedule and my default result set. Reload my screen. So different things that you can do here. You can search by a course. So if I wanted to search for that English course, I can pull up any of my Englishes. I can search by a grade level to see which ones are for my 10th grade students. I can search by a specific teacher. So if I want to see what classes Albert is teaching, I can search and just see what classes he has scheduled to him. I can search by a course term. So in my case, I have semester classes and all year classes. Okay. If you want to get specific, you can dive down all the way to the location. Okay. But we're going to look at our English 10 class. Oops, not 19, 10. Wow, I can't speak or type. Okay, so we're going to pull this up. There are 3 different sections of my English 10 class. So if you look at the course sections on page 16, it does specifically say what I just said earlier. Course sections that are in student information that do not have students assigned to them will still go over to gradebook. So if I know for sure that Tommy Brown is not going to be teaching English this year, I want to make sure that I delete it or make it inactive. If not, this is going to populate in Tommy's gradebook once integration gets turned on in August. Okay, so if he's not teaching it, I do want to remove it. So there's a lot of course sections. So there's a couple reports that you can look at, just like we looked at our CRSE report and our course details report for our course sections. There are 2 different reports that you might want to look at. One is your R407. Okay, my R407 is going to show so here's my course name. Oh, here's my course code, my course name. If there's any, if it's in demand, that's student requests. So that will populate as students start requesting things. And then it's going to show you how many sections you have. Okay. So as you start getting the demands in, you can see, okay, well, if I have 75 in demand, but I only have 2 sections, you don't want to have that many kids in each section. So you might have to add one. So again, this is called your R407. It's going to show each course in each section. And then once scheduling happens, how much is in each one. The other one that I want to show you, and this one is not in the documentation, but I do like this one. It is called your R807. So it shows, it's basically a summary of your courses and teachers. And then it'll show you how many people are assigned into that course. Okay, so that's your R807. And I did run this one already as well. So there it goes. Okay, so if you look, again, I kind of like this one because it's a short, sweet summary compared to the 407. Your course name, okay, what section it is. So you can see here I have section 3 and section 1 for my English. And then the capacity of the class and then students enrolled. So it is, once they are assigned to this, it's going to tell you how many students are in each of those sections. So you might say here, we have 3 sections of English 10, and maybe only one section has like 3 kids. You're like, oh, really? I need to kind of, figure them out a different way and get them into one of the different sections, or evenly space them a different way. So, one class doesn't have 20 and then the other one has 3. So again, that is called the R807. It is not in the document, but I do like it because it's a short, condensed version of the 407. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my course sections. And I'm going to pull up that English. Oh. Okay, so looking at this, we're just going to pull up, one from section 1 from the start, and then we'll look at section 2 as well. So when I'm looking at this, of course, all of the information that we just put in the course, that's the course as the whole. These are individual sections. So you can have these for core classes. You can also have these for study halls. You can have multiple sections for lunches. Okay. So I know some people have like 10 lunches because they think they have to have them all separate courses, but you can have, lunch section 1, lunch section 2, whatever it might be. So it's just going to go in sequential order unless you want to change it. A lot of times districts try to match up the section number with the period of the day that they are teaching, but that doesn't always necessarily work. So that's just depending on how you do it. Your capacity is how many students can be enrolled into or assigned into that class. Okay. And then if you're using the batch scheduler, you can say if there's a percentage that you're allowed to go over that amount. And then what the course term is. So in this case, this is an all year class. If you are switching, and I know some people are switching, from all year classes to semester classes or something different. If now is the time to change your course term, because if you start assigning courses to students and you want to change it from an all year to a semester 1 class, you have to remove all those course assignments to those students. You can change the course term and then you have to reassign it to those students. So again, since it's pretty empty right now in our 26-27 school year, now is the time to make those adjustments. Here is the inactive or roll to next school year. So for example, like I said, with that phys ed, if you know you're only teaching 2 phys ed classes, but you have 3 active, make sure you inactivate one so it doesn't flow over into gradebook. Okay. The meetings time description. This gets automatically populated from the meetings times tab. Okay. However, you can customize it. So this is showing that this is period 3 in room 126 from the meeting times tab. If I wanted to say something different, I can put a check mark there and then I can free type whatever I want. Please note, if you are going to customize your meeting time description, those do not carry over in SYI, and those do not update if you're making changes to the meeting times tab. If you leave it unchecked, any changes I make in the meeting times tab will automatically update the meeting time description. Okay. But I do have a lot of people put things in here when there's multiple teachers or multiple rooms, things like that. Okay. Just note those don't carry over. Okay. Our meeting times. So there are 3 different ones. I'm gonna not go over the advanced. If somebody has an advanced case, we'll look at it individually. So your basic is your traditional class. 1 teacher, 1 location, 1 or 2 periods of the day for the full entire term of the class. Okay, so if it's semester or all year. Okay, so one teacher, one location. But I'm saying multiple periods because sometimes you guys have like a 5A, 5B because of a lunch. And you can, it's okay, you can select that. The next one is our intermediate. Okay, this is, and I'm gonna actually go back and switch to my other course here, my section 2. So an intermediate is when you might have two teachers. So whether they're co-teaching, whether it's a gen ed and a special ed teacher, whether, one does it one day, one does it another day, your intermediate, you can have multiple teachers. So if I look, I can add a new teacher if it's a new location and or a period. So for example, if I'm looking at this one, I don't know if this would really happen, but Early Bird teaches the class on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Tommy Brown teaches it on Tuesday, Thursday.
Okay, so I have a teacher, she's a prevention specialist that wants to be added to classrooms. Do I add her here or do I add her?
Why does she want to be added to classroom?
Grade book?
Just to check grades and stuff. The teacher would share their grade book with her individually.
So I don't, because I've been putting them in the teacher history.
Then they get reported to EMIS that they are co-teaching. So if they're physically not co-teaching, the teacher can just share with them. So co-teaching is supposed to be each teacher is teaching 50% of the time. A lot of our intervention specialists sit with the students and help the students, but aren't physically teaching.
Okay.
So in that case, the head teacher of that class would just share in grade book.
They know.
They should, but in grade book, I'll pull up my teacher here. Hold on.
And I just thought if I added them as a co-teacher, that would give them, but I didn't.
It does give them access, but it does report them as a co-teacher.
Okay.
And there are some cases where like there is a actual co-teaching situation, but majority of the time they're just in there helping their students. So in the teacher's grade book, there is a button that says set up gradebook access.
Okay.
So if I wanted to share this, so I want to share my phys ed class with another teacher, I say add. So, and then, Early Bird is the intervention specialist. I would hit update, and now Early Bird, it will populate in their grade book.
Okay, that's not reported.
That's not reported. That just stays right in grade book.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Oop. Okay, let me get back into okay, so question in the chat, on the course section page, we cannot change the teacher, correct? I would have to add a new section with a new teacher. If you are working in the 26-27 school year and you know that Tommy Brown is no longer going to be there and somebody else is replacing them, you can go ahead and trash it and add the new person. If you're in the process of hiring a new teacher, most districts have a fake teacher like staff or teacher. You can add in temporarily, but yes, you can, since we're working in the future school year, you can update any of the teachers. Yeah, that's why we try to get SYI done in the scheduling so you can start working and making all these changes. Okay. Our memberships, some people might see this if you have course groups. So if you're grouping like A and B together because you have semester classes, you would see those listed here. Attendance, it's just going to mark the period that this class is in attendance. This honestly does not matter because our teachers don't do period attendance in student information. our teachers are taking period attendance in gradebook. So this is more for period attendance in student information. Teacher history. Okay, so this is my intermediate. You can see I have teacher history set up here. So I'm going to explain two things here. So my meeting times tab, this is what populates for a grade book. So this is saying, okay, when we integrate, Early Bird is going to get this course section as well as Tommy Brown. I'm actually going to go back to my singleton. Let me go back to that one. Okay. So in this case, we have Tommy is teaching this class. Okay, so this is what is saying it is going into the teacher's grade book. The meeting times, very important. Teacher history does not automatically match up with the meeting times. It's a separate tab. This is what gets reported to EMIS. Okay, this does not have anything to do with the teacher's grade book. This has to do with EMIS. If you are working on stuff before school starts, the important one is to have the meeting times correct. EMIS coordinators can do something called wipe and new prior to the first day of school, and it will match whatever's on the meetings time and populate the teacher history. After the first day of school, both of them have to be changed. If you're like, I'm never going to remember that, then just change both of them to make sure the meeting time, so it goes to the teacher's grade book, and the teacher history match, because this goes to EMIS. Okay. Also, I know we get those changes right at the beginning of the school year, right before school starts. Tommy decides, 2 weeks before school starts, I'm going to retire. I'm not coming back. Okay. It happens, or, gets another job, whatever it might be. Integration has already been turned on. This teacher already went over to gradebook for this course. Okay. So if I change it now to say Mrs. Goslow, it's going to have both teachers listed in gradebook only. It'll say Brown and Goslow. Okay. So that is a gradebook fix, not a student information fix. Okay. So just once it integrates, it goes. You can let us know, or like your school admin and gradebook, you can go into the courses screen and remove that staff member.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, I think it's the classes screen. It's the classes screen. They call them classes and they're not sections. But yeah, not everybody has school admin, so I don't really show that. But yeah, you can easily do that yourself. Oh, maybe, yeah. Okay, and then EMIS override, this isn't used very often. The most popular case would be if your student population, you have English classes, but one is for our special ed group. You can mark that one as special ed. Remember, it has to be greater than 50%, not at 50%. And then the other popular one is if the EMIS IRN location is different, because maybe you have one English comm class being taught at Ashland University and one English comm class being taught at Akron University. You could put them as the same course, just different sections with the different IRN locations. Okay. Most of the time, people are putting them as separate courses because they like them separate because they're separate colleges. So again, that's completely up to you. Okay. Next is, I'm going to go back one layer. We are on the course groups and course sections, which is page 27. I don't know if everybody is using this. Some people might be using this if you have semester classes, but it's working with course groups. So when I'm working with a course group, I'm just going to hit search. I only have 2 here. Okay. But a couple things need to be created before I create the group. Obviously, I have to have the course created first. So I have to have a biology class created. Okay. So I'm making a group for my biology class. So this might be biology A and B. Okay. Second thing I have to do is I have to have a course section made for each of those. Okay. So let's look at all this. So on my courses, oh, silly me. Okay, so I want to look at my biology course. Okay, so I have my 510A, and then I also have my 510B. Okay, so the course is created. Then I have to make sure I have course sections. So I had my 510A. I have a course section created, and then I have my 510B. I have a course section created. Now I can create my group. I can group them together. So I'm just going to search. If you were adding a new, you would click add new. I'm just going to edit the one I have. So you're going to give it a name. This code cannot match any of the codes of your courses. So notice my courses were 510A and 510B. So I made my course group without the letters. I called it 510, or I can call it 510AB, something, but it cannot be the same as a previous course, whether active or inactive. And I'm going to update this because I want it A and B. Okay. And then what the short name is, the capacity, and your scheduling priority. Okay. The is locked does not work here. You can do that individually on the course sections. So even if you checked it, so what the is locked means is if a student is requesting this on the public module, that they have to request them together. They're locked together. They can't take A separately from B. And then same thing here, these have to deal with the public module. Do you want the course displayed as the group, or do you want them displayed individually? If you do individually, it'll show biology A, biology B. If you uncheck it, it's going to show 510 biology AB together as one group. And again, these 2 are for the public module. And then is it active? This is where it is showing, okay, what courses are being used. So I am going to pull in my courses. So I pulled in 510A, and then I pulled in 510B. Okay. So, and I might teach multiple sections of this. So I'm going to come down and add a section. So my first section is going to be section 1. If I want to number it something else, I can, but I want section 1. So that's my A, and then my B, second semester. The capacity, okay, this is going to override what is in this. So this is the important one. So if my capacity is 25, and then this is locked, does work. So if you want them to be together, so they can only register for them as the group, then you will want to say is locked. Okay. If you did have another section of this, you could add additional sections. Okay. But again, those sections would have to be created first in my course sections before I can start adding course group sections. Okay. Any questions with courses, course sections, or course groups?